What's up, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to the channel. Today is the 9th?
Nope,
6th. Not even close. Upside down.
7th.
7th? All right, what is it really?
Huh?
What is it really?
7th.
It is the 7th?
Yeah.
All right, today's October 7th, and before we get started in today's video on what we're working on, I want you guys to head over to the Facebook page. I'll put a link in the description down below. We're doing an unofficial hoodie order. So I know a lot of you guys who have been watching are saying, hey, how do I get those hoodies that you guys are wearing? These are not the hoodies. Neither one of us are wearing our own apparel today. But if you want to get in on one, they're $40 or $52 shipped. So head over to the Facebook page. Just comment your size. We'll message you, ask for payment and your address. And we're going to be getting those ordered and shipped out by next weekend. So thanks for listening to our shameless self-plug. But we had a few people ask for them, so we were going to order like 4 or 5. We decided to make a post on Facebook and Instagram, and now we have like 50 people that want some. So if you want to get in on that order, then please click the link down below before the 9th, which is going to be Friday, because I need to order them by Friday in order to get them by next weekend. So anyway, let's move on to today's projects. And we're doing a couple different things in this video. You see Dan's car is up on the lift. He's got a few issues with his car. You guys will see that in this video. But most importantly, we are going to start on a project that you guys haven't even seen yet. And we're going to wrap up another project that we just finished, which is this GT500. This was a quick one. He's been on the waiting list for a long time, so he was happy to finally get his car in here. And yeah, let's get into the fun stuff first, which is going to be a flipped, flooded, mud-filled Coyote engine disassembly for a unknown project that you guys don't know yet. So let's get into it.
For an unknown project that you guys don't know yet.
All right, here she is in all of her glory. So we have just a short block here. We have the heads, valve covers, oil pan, obviously you see here. So we have pretty much all the makings to make a long block for this Coyote project. And what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble this thing. So we're going to take a few minutes, just kind of look over it. Obviously, there's this, so like the whole front of the motor looks really clean. This is a Gen 2 Coyote, so it has a forged crank, forged rods, and a hyper-eutectic piston. So what we're most concerned with is that we're going to be changing the rods and piston combination. We're going to bump some compression into this thing. And we haven't decided yet if we want to put a VMP on top of it or a Whipple, or if we want to go with like a high compression, high revving NA motor. You know, there's obviously some really sick built Coyotes going 8,500 RPM or more. And we're kind of thinking that that might be pretty cool for this project too. So comment down below, what do you guys think? This is going to be going into a Fox body. It's going to be getting a full road race style suspension from Maximum Motorsports. And it's going to be a sick off the chain build. We're going to go more into it into the next video. But should we put a blower on this thing, or should we make it a high revving NA monster? So those are the two options. Comment down below what you think, and let's get into this again. So this was from a flipped and flooded F-150. You can see there's just, like the front half, there's nothing. It's pretty clean. But then in the back half, this is all mud. It's all full of mud. The cylinder walls are a little rusted. They're actually not that bad. I have not turned it over, but we're going to start disassembling it. I'm going to have to get a bolt in the crank, start rotating it over, because we do need to knock all the rods and pistons out. We're going to take the crankshaft off. The oil pump is going to have to get a new pump, billet gears. The block is going to get just cleaned up. It's only got about 10,000 miles on this thing. So as you can see, the block is super clean, no corrosion or nothing. And that's the plan for today. See what a flipped, flooded, mud-filled Coyote looks like on the inside. I kind of think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think it's going to come apart kind of tough because the cylinder walls have a bunch of junk on them. So that's going to ruin the rings and everything. But I think the bearings and everything are going to look pretty good. And I'll be surprised if we turn it over. That's just going to be the first test. All right, let's get started. All right, so I found a crank bolt finally. I'm going to flip this thing over. I'm going to spray some like penetrating stuff on the cylinder walls just so it tries to lubricate it as it's going. I'm gonna spray some on the bottom end too, just to try to eliminate any kind of galling that we might get out of this. But we do need to rotate over in order to knock the crank out. So that's what I'm gonna do now. All right, so let's look at what the top of this thing looks like. Looks a little bit worse in the light, but just full of crud. I mean, it's not terrible. Nothing's like rusted. That one's got dirt in it. This side's a little bit better. Maybe we should power wash it first. I think that's what I'm gonna do. After looking at how much dirt is on the top end, I know there's mud on the bottom. I'm actually gonna push this outside. I'm just gonna pressure wash the whole thing. So then we'll kind of start from there. All right, after a pressure wash, the engine looks a lot better. However, I cannot turn it over. So that's gonna make disassembly a little bit more of a pain in the butt. Hopefully we can get it apart. But what I did is I soaked the top and bottom with some penetrating stuff. See if it'll start seeping into some of the spots that are seized up. But we're just going to start with the easy ones to access and start trying to knock the pistons out. Probably going to break all the mains loose to see if that'll free up some stuff. I'm not sure if it's seized at the main bearings or the pistons into the cylinder wall since it's been sitting like this for about, I don't know, maybe a year. So it's going to be interesting. Oil pump came right off, not seized. So that's good. Woohoo! She's mint. It's like brand new in that one. Nice. Got a little bit of scoring between the two. Probably from dirt getting in there. Alright, now we gotta try and knock these pistons out, which is gonna be the interesting. Alright, we do not plan on reusing any of this stuff, so please excuse my unorthodox method for trying to knock these pistons out of the motor. Okay, that was the rearward one. Oh yeah, that's nice. I wonder why you couldn't turn it over. All the rings are stuck in.
Piston doesn't look too bad otherwise.
No, it's not. Just corroded.
All right.
She is disassembled. Actually, all the bearings look like brand new. It's actually pretty cool. You can still see like the laser etching on it, what cylinder they were in. That's pretty nice. All the main bearings are clean. All the rod bearings are clean. Bench is a total mess. All the pistons are filthy, dirty, muddy, and one of them is not like the other. So there's our culprit for why the engine came out. And everything else looks pretty good. Nothing was locked up aside from the pistons being seized in there. I'm going to power wash it again and probably just hit the cylinder walls with a scuff pad to see if we can see if there's any cracking in them. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it looks pretty good. It's a pretty good donor block. And yeah, turned into a monster now. All the main caps are good. All the bolts came out. I mean, nothing's out of the ordinary aside from it being full of mud and water. So we're going to power wash it again so it's a clean block, and then run it down to MJE Performance so he can take a look at it and he could start deciding if we need to go 10 over and getting a rotating assembly spec for this thing. So that's about it on the teardown of the Coyote motor. We'll show you with the clean cylinder walls.
Take all the squirters out.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up deleting all those, but I'm going to let Mark decide.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's about it. That was our first seized engine disassembly, an F-150 Coyote. A lot of fun. It was very challenging, obviously, getting to some of the rod bolts and seeing what was locked up. But the little bit of seizing that the pistons had in the sleeves totally stopped it from turning over. But once we got them all knocked out, it was no problem. All the bearings are good. So overall consensus, this should be good as long as it doesn't need to be sleeved. And even if it does, it's probably worth it. So, all right, guys, let's give you an update on some of the other projects going on today. But for the most part, the Coyote is done. We'll show you the cylinder walls cleaned up once I scuff them up. And then we will move on to the next portion of today's episode. We're working on some more late model Mustang modifications. So above me is a beautiful 2014 GT500. It has 6,000 miles on it. Andre bought it when it had like 1,200 miles on it, so it's basically brand freaking new. And he wants it to be a little bit more rowdy, a little bit more predictable, and we're putting a whole slew of upgrades. And we're going to kind of call this like the basic GT500 starter like mod pack, because it's very common for people with this body style, this setup, to ask us to install this very same package. So I should give you guys a quick rundown on what we're going to be working on today. It is obviously a 13 GT500. We're going to have parts from Ford Racing, Maximum Motorsports. We're going to try to make the car just a little bit more solid and accelerate a little bit harder. So let's get into the parts packages. All right, so we picked a host of different upgrades that we kind of spec'd out and Andre spec'd out for this car. It is starting with some real basics like a lowering kit. So Steeda lowering springs. We're going to be putting Maximum Motorsports double adjustable lower control arms with relocation brackets. So those are in these boxes here. We're going to be putting a 410 gear in it, which is going to make this car really rowdy. So we made sure that he had a tire on it before it came. So it's got an R888 on it, on his factory 20-inch wheels. Super beefy. That's going to make the car pull really hard. We have some shifter modifications going on. We're going to tighten up everything as far as brake lines. Got braided brake lines. We have a cross member, an added brace for the engine bell housing brace. We have a braided clutch line that's going to be going on it. MGW shifter. Pan hard bar. So that pretty much sums up the initial modifications that are going to be made to this thing. So a quick couple snafus right off the bat. Being a convertible, it has some really intrusive bracing underneath this thing. So in order to do the gear, we like to drop the housing down. It makes it easier to do everything. But in this situation, we're going to have to take off the sway bar, pan hard bar, and then these braces as well. So that's kind of a pain because they are mounted to the spare tire well, the floor underneath the back seats, and then in the front, which is actually where we have the lift. So we're going to have to change that in order to take it apart any further. So that's kind of a pain. So maybe we'll do all the suspension modifications first and then redo the lift and get the axle down so we can do the gear, because it'll be kind of tight to get the differential in and out like this. Super clean though. I mean, there's no rust on it at all. Oh, we're also going to be doing just the axle backs here. Got some Ford Performance by Borlas. So a little bit different look. The exhaust tip is a little bit beefier when it's done. So we're going to make it sound a little bit louder, accelerate a little bit harder, hook up a little bit better, and shift nicer. That's the goal for today's video and Andre's GT500. So let's get to it. We're going to start taking some stuff apart, and we'll take you guys along for the ride, obviously.
Well, we've gotten a little bit done so far. Well, I guess quite a bit. Got the Maximum Motorsports relocated lowers on, along with their double adjustable lower control arms as well. So we got the BMR upper in as well. Got the lowering springs on that side. Cut down the bump stops, because obviously now we don't want to bottom out and unload the suspension if he's trying to do anything crazy and launch a car or anything like that. As you can see there, lower control arms and the relocated lowers. Got that out. Drive shaft is out in order to prep for the new rear gear, and then also make it easier to put in the new shifter, which is the next thing. Look at these things. This is factory, obviously. That is MGW. Look at how flimsy this thing looks. Just a couple little bars and one straight rod and rubber bushing, that's about it. Wiggle all around, can do all sorts of things. But this thing is super beefy, extremely nice. Obviously these bolt up here, go back on the trans in the stock location. Big old billet piece. Then it comes with a rear support as well, which obviously all bolts in. Comes with a isolation plate like factory does, obviously, but this one is much nicer. Comes with some sound deadening pads. Try and get this back up in there. I was able to do it just lowering the trans down on the back side. Obviously taking it off the mounts of the body right here. Boom, boom. Lower it down all the way. And you're able to get the clips off the side. You have to lift them up. So there's like these little guys that sit on the edge of the trans. You lift them up and they just slide right out. So one on each side. They go opposite directions, sadly. With the one on the driver's side, a little bit more difficult to get to, but the passenger side one was fairly simple. Just release those, take it off, and yeah. They'll actually end up going back on with the new setup too. So don't lose them, don't throw them away or anything like that. Well, once that momentum train gets a rolling, unfortunately the camera does not. We got a ton of work done on the GT500 today. I want to kind of give you guys a brief overview. I know Dan kept you updated on the MGW shifter install. That was completed. Feels so much better than the factory one. I mean, it's night and day difference. Any TR6060 owner should have one or similar. So we also got the Borla axle backs installed. It sounds really good. We'll show you guys that at the end of the video, which we'll finish up tomorrow with the rest of this car. But the Ford Performance by Borla axle backs sound great. We have the solid relocated lower control arms by Maximum, upper from BMR with their adjustable mount. Their adjustable panhard. Everything's in poly. It's still a street car except for the lowers. They're solid. But the panhard and upper are still poly to try to keep the noise down a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more transfer than there ever was, but try to minimize it. The 410 is installed. Very nice pattern on it. Good bearing preload. Everything set there. Pinion shim, pinion crush sleeve delete spacers in. Moving to the front, we have the shifter installed. You can see a little bit there. We have the CHE brace, which this is for all S197 cars. So I don't think they really factor in too much, the GT500. But we got to do an oil change on it tomorrow. So we will maybe end up modifying that if it's too long, which means that we'll have to take this off in order to get that out and then cut it down and then get it back in there. So that'll be a pain in the butt. But once we bolt it down, we're like, oh, that's kind of silly. And then I think that's it. So all we have left on this thing is lowering springs for the front, which requires dropping the coilover assembly out and getting a strut compressor and getting that all handled. Take that next door to our
neighborhood mechanic shop. We'll get those taken care of. And I think
Brake lines.
oil change and stainless steel brake lines and the clutch brake line. But Dan and I really busted our ass on this thing today. I mean, all day working on this, and we got like, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. This part's not going to make the video because I'm not explaining it well. But a lot of work done in one day, that's for sure. All right, your GT500 modifications are set.